Welcome back to New Record Day. My name is Ron, and today, folks, we're doing a review of the Rogue Audio Stereo 100 and the 99 Super Magnum. Woo!
That's right, folks. The time has finally come to check out what happens when I yank out the Cronus from the system and move into the realm of separate components. I know I previously mentioned that I was interested in doing a review of the Rogue Pharaoh, but after talking with Mark O'Brien, we decided to move in a much bolder direction. Generally speaking, the benefit of having separate components is each piece will have their own power supply, which can result in increased dynamics. Also taken into consideration is the extra space to focus on better designs without having to cram everything into one box and make compromises. Setting the tube bias on the Stereo 100 was step one in this adventure, and just like the Cronus Magnum, the process is pain-free and easy to do. Simply remove the tube cage with the Phillips screwdriver and seat the tubes in the correct valve positions marked 1 through 4. Making sure you connect your speakers, turn on the amp, and wait about 15 minutes as things warm up and you're ready to rock and roll. Oh, make sure your volume knob is turned all the way down while setting the bias. With the supplied bias tool, I was able to lock in the KT120s to 40 millivolts, which has remained stable for the last 2 months of listening to this bad boy. The 99 Super Magnum is an all-tube preamplifier that features 4 6S-in7 tubes and an optional phono section, which I passed up as I'm using separate components for phono amplification. Front panel consists of power, mute, mono, and record buttons. Mono simply combines the left and right channels, and the record button allows you to use either a fixed or variable signal from the rear RCA jacks in the back. Headphone jack, 5 RCA inputs, and 2 outputs on the rear are all well made and laid out with plenty of room for any size connector out there. Plugging in the 2 umbilical power cords is pretty simple as they can only go in one way, but I'll be the first to report that they seem to be a little bit fussy. More often than I would like, the pins don't seem to make contact and the unit won't turn on unless I fiddle around with it. All knobs and pots on the 99 feel great, and I had no other issues with things not working well during the review, so all in all, this preamp continues to show that the last thing you need to be worrying about is the build quality of a Rogue amplifier. The Stereo 100 is a beastly 65 pounds all-tube amp featuring KT120 output tubes that can also be swapped for KT88s. Featuring 4 and 8 ohm taps on the back, XLR and RCA input jacks, and a switch for ultralinear and Triode settings make this amp suitable for just about anyone looking for some serious horsepower added to their rig. Frequency response comes in 5 Hz to 50 kHz, total harmonic distortion less than 0.1%, and offers 100 watts of pure musical enjoyment. Everything on the Stereo 100 feels well made and strong as an ox. The 5-way binding posts are high quality, and nothing about this amp feels cheap or thrown together in a hurry. The first time I heard the 99 Super Magnum and the Stereo 100 in my room, I knew that any concerns I had of this system possibly sounding similar or like my Cronus were instantly shattered. Not that sounding like the Cronus would be a bad thing, but it's important to understand. This system is significantly more expensive than the integrated Cronus, so it really had something to prove to convince me that the money is well spent. The first thing out of the gate I noticed was increased dynamics, stronger mid-bass, and deeper bass extension. For the first week or so, I thought the new rig sounded just a little bit warmer than the Cronus, but I was wrong. There was just a lot more oomph and authority in the mid-bass to fill in some of the gaps and crevices that the Cronus left open. The top end of this rig has more clarity and a razor-sharp focus throughout the soundstage. While I felt the background of the Cronus was pretty dang dark, this sucker is pitch black and music pops literally out of nowhere. For those that watched my Cronus review, at the end of that review, one of my gripes was the remote. Well, I'm happy to report that with the 99 Super Magnum and the remote that came with it, all issues that I remember having with the Cronus sensitivity on the remote has been fixed. It is perfect. The Super 99 has a unique feature on the front panel that offers 5 different input attenuation levels that really need to be explained well in order to understand what the heck is actually happening. Coming in at 23 decibels, the Super 99 has enough gain to send most audiophiles running for the hills in fear for their lives. Look, I get it, so let's navigate through this together. According to the manual and emails to Mark, the reason this selector knob exists in the first place is to offer versatility with source and speaker matching. Look at it this way. The global gain is simply a ladder attenuator that lowers the signal level going into the preamp. In other words, this is a knob that allows you to control how sensitive the volume is, and that's the bottom line. Rogue is using a high-quality gray hill switch and Vichet resistors to accomplish this task, and because the preamp's gain is very high, it needs to be attenuated to be useful. So, if you happen to have very high or low efficiency speakers or a low output source, you won't have a volume knob that's either blasting at 10 o'clock or doesn't give you the juice needed until it's cranked. I think the biggest concern audiophiles will have with this feature is the fear of attenuating anything that has to do with the signal coming in as opposed to the gain itself. So I decided to do what New Record Day does best and put it to the test. On the review page, you can check out 5 high-resolution samples of the recordings made using the different gain settings. I'll cut to the chase. Good luck hearing any difference at all, because I can't after a number of tries and failures. Bottom line, Rogue took care of our signal and everything sounds just fine. Treble on the 99 Super Magnum sounds a little pronounced in such a fashion that, comparing it to a ruler flat Manly Shrimp, you do end up with a sound that could be described as a couple notches north on the brighter side of the sun. Now, I'm not talking about ear-screeching, run-for-your-earplugs kind of nonsense. I'm referring to tip-top extensions that have a little extra flair than neutral. So, if you find yourself with a warmer-sounding system, this preamp could liven up the sound just enough to breathe some life back into the mix. Tossing in the first watt B1 passive preamp validated that the Stereo 100 with KT120s also tilts a little more on the detail side of the swimming pool, and I wouldn't make the mistake of describing these amps as dark or warm. If you are looking for a tube amp that is more on the analytical side of the spectrum in treble town, I can't see you making a mistake here. Toss in the fact that you could swap to KT88s, things could get interesting. While I don't think that it will radically change the color that we're looking at, you could end up with a different shade of the same color, and that might not be a bad thing depending on what you want out of your system. All in all, I would describe the combo as a couple notches on the brighter side of the audio spectrum. While the mid-range of the 99 is certainly reference level by most standards, I prefer the competition of the Manly Shrimp a little more. It sounded to me like the Manly had just a little more meat on the bones, which helps certain instruments jump out of the mix like holographic images that you could reach out and grab. On both units, vocals were presented with terrific precision, cutting through the mix and anchoring itself right in the pocket of musical perfection. While I'd probably give the first place ribbon to the Rogue in overall details in mid-range presentation, I'd still say the Rogue sounded slightly leaner than the Manly, and my gut tells me the Shrimp would probably be easier on the ears in long-term listening sessions. Keep in mind here, folks, these differences are very small and should be taken as such. Trying out the B1 with the Stereo 100 confirmed that while the KT120s are crystal clear on the top end, and to some might even be considered a little bright, the mid-range doesn't necessarily follow the same suit. If anything, the mid-range reminded me of what I love so much about the Cronus integrated amplifier. Textures and body of anything well recorded sounded absolutely spot on without a hint of graininess. Vocals are presented with authority and have enough guts to please the most demanding listeners. Bass heads would probably lean in favor of the Rogue, as I found there to be a little more heft and weight in the Super 99 than the Shrimp. This really got my wheels turning that perhaps the Super 99 might be suited for the listener who wants a dash more top and bottom and they're willing to sacrifice a small portion of mid-range magic to get there. While checking out a number of bass tracks, I was amazed at just how much authority pours out of this rig, and there were times when the only reaction that was happening was me sitting here giggling with a giant grin on my face. Where this muscle is coming from was obvious the second I went back to the First Watt B1 and was left with the glowing KT120 staring back at me, ready for more. This Stereo 100 will rip your face off, folks. If you are looking for ground-smashing bass that will keep its cool under pressure and never sound bloated or boomy, I can't see how you could possibly make a bad decision here. If there is one big difference between this combo and my old Cronus, the bass and slam would be first in line. To be blunt, as good as the bass is on the Cronus, this combo packs its lunch and sends it back home to mommy. Soundstage is incredibly impressive on both the 99 and Stereo 100, and with the recent addition of my VPI Classic 2, I will be clear in saying my room has never sounded so wide and tall. Edge-to-edge sonics with laser beam accuracy is how I would describe these two incredible pieces of equipment. Shaking things up, I tried out the shrimp in the mix and found that the extra meat in the mids helped create the best sounding stage I have ever heard in my house. Trying to localize where all this magic is coming from, I decided to toss in the Emerald Physics 100.2 SE amp that's still hanging around from the CS2P review, and let me tell you, that exercise didn't last very long at all. Everything that I heard that was huge, dynamic, and punchy turned to thin, lifeless, and dark. I realized that while the Shrimp is one heck of a preamp and showed up to the party ready to rock and roll, the Emerald passed out drunk long before things got interesting. This just goes to show how important a power amplifier really is and shouldn't be overlooked when putting a system together. For those curious, I wish I could tell you that in all my listening that I have done, I'd be able to describe the obvious sonic differences between the ultralinear and triode settings, but the truth is, it was tough to tell a big enough of a difference to spend a lot of time covering it. If anything, I found that the ultralinear worked better in 75% of the time, especially when I wanted big, bold sound and get the walls rumbling. For those quiet nights when Sarah was sleeping, I would try the triode setting and perhaps there was just a tad bit more detail. Bottom line, after hearing what this amp can do with either setting, I wouldn't obsess over that particular feature if you're in the market for the Stereo 100. At the end of the day, this system was so incredible, I made the commitment to buy and now own both pieces. It was bittersweet to let go of my Cronus, as I still feel that it might be one of the best values on the market. However, the versatility of the 99 Super Magnum and the Stereo 100 should keep this reviewer quite content for a while now. Well folks, there you have it. The 99 Super Magnum and Stereo 100 are reference level high quality products that come with my highest recommendation. No doubt about that. Thank you so much for stopping by today. If you have any questions about this review, be sure to leave the comments down below. Send me the emails. You guys know the drill. Take it easy. Peace. Mark O'Brien, you are a freaking genius. A genius! All right, I ask you to do one thing, just one thing, and this is how you repay me? Oh, unbelievable.